Hey guys, this is the Scorpion Trucker. Welcome to my channel. With trucking in the condition that it's in nowadays, here we are in 2020, we have freight volumes up and down, freight rates mostly down, fuel mostly up and rising, many trucking companies, small and large, going out of business. It's a rough time to be in trucking. I'm going to be right back with 5 points. 5 things that I'm doing right now to stay in business. Stay tuned. Hey guys, when I got started as an owner-operator, it was August of 2020 when I got started. Back in that day, rates were fantastic. When I got involved in trucking, rates were through the roof, and it was great. It was wonderful. It was nice to have $6,000-7,000 in the bank in case of a breakdown. Yep, good times. But you know, I always listened to my mentors who said, hey, this isn't going to stay like this. Save up for the downtimes. You know, this market can't sustain itself at these rates. Well, here we are in September of 2022. But it really started at the beginning of this year, really, for me anyway. So now I find myself, I don't have $5,000 to $7,000 in the bank, nowhere near that. And in fact, I'm one of the owner-operators who are pretty much living from load to load, unfortunately. It's a rough time. So what am I doing to stay in business? The first thing I'm doing, I've lowered my costs at home. Now, on the advice of my mentors when I first got into trucking, I had no debt. We had no debt. So we've kept our costs. We started with low costs, and we've kept our costs low. So the only thing that we've really had to change during the difficult times here is a little less spending in terms of going out to eat. And that's saving us quite a bit of money. Secondly, is I might have to sell my Chevy Tahoe. Now, I own my Chevy Tahoe, so I'm not making payments on it, but I am paying for insurance for it. And it's really not that much. It's really not that big of a deal, but I have been contemplating that it's just sitting there. I don't use it. So I may sell my truck. That's something that, depending on your situation at home, if you have high home bills, you may need to sell some of your stuff, to liquidate some of your assets in order to stay afloat. That may be something you may need to do. It's not easy to do because, you know, we work hard to buy our stuff. You know, we like our toys, we like, you know, the things that we enjoy. Boat, you know, car, another car, fancy car, you know, those types of things. But if those things are putting a drain on us financially at home, in order to stay in business, you may have to liquidate those things. Point 2, lower costs on my truck. Now, there are 2 areas that I'm actually doing that. I'm not skimping on maintenance, though I will say it has been more of a challenge. And I know it has been for many owner-operators because unfortunately I see a lot more than I've ever seen in 2 years. A lot of owner-operators broken down on the side of the road. And unfortunately, I've seen some of those trucks sit there for a week. I get it, it's tough. The areas that I'm cutting back on in the truck is firstly, fuel. Cutting back on fuel. The company that I'm leased on to, we have a really good fuel discount. So I'm able to get great discounts at TAs and Petros. So what I've done is I primarily run from Arizona to Colorado and back. So I have strategic fueling stations where I know I can get the best rate on my fuel. Now I also use small mom and pop places like Mavericks, Marathons, Conocos, and Speedways. Those are places that I fuel up out here, and that's worked out really well for me. I've also had to slow down. My truck, my baby likes to run at 72. She's geared for 72, but I have lowered my speed to between 62 and 65, and I have seen a tremendous savings in fuel. I've got a 2016 Cascadia 10-speed, and she gets really, really good gas mileage. And lowering my speed has helped save me a lot of money on fuel. The second area where I'm lowering the cost on my truck is food. I buy my own food. I cook my own food out of the truck. It saves me a ton of money. Plus, what I'm buying and cooking is a lot better nutritionally than what I can get at the truck stops. I will have a pizza from time to time at a truck stop, and sometimes I will get those little taquitos. Anyway, but for the most part, I eat out of my truck. I make my own coffee out of my truck, and I save a ton of money. Point number 3, build good relationships with brokers. Now I know this is a volatile and sensitive topic. There are good and there are bad brokers. But if you are an owner-operator running on the spot market, whether you like it or not, brokers are our business partners. Okay? If you don't have any other source to get your freight from, they are our business partners. And I can say, for me, having good brokers that I have really good relationships with, has been a huge profit-making part of my business, because most of the brokers I have, and like I said, I run from Arizona to Colorado and back. I have several brokers right here in Arizona that I can call and say, hey, do you have anything? Typically, I pick up on a Friday, stay home for the weekend, I leave Sunday morning, deliver Monday morning. That's my typical pattern of how I run to Colorado and back. And I have probably 4 brokers that I can give a call to on a Monday and ask them about what they have popping out of here on Friday. And typically I can schedule that far in advance, which is really nice, and get good rates going to Colorado. And then while I'm in Colorado, I have a great broker who helps me get loads from Colorado back to Arizona. Sometimes it goes through New Mexico, but most of the time I end up at the destination back in Arizona. And that works out great. Now, there have been times, I have another broker where sometimes in trucking, things don't work that smoothly. And I end up finding myself stuck in Colorado. I have a broker in Colorado where I can run locally. And if you ever find yourself in Colorado, I know a lot of times Colorado can be a tough market to get out of, but if you find yourself stuck in Colorado, try to run some of the local short runs. Some of the shorties are actually pretty good. So I have found a broker that if I have to stay there, I can actually do okay until I can get a load back to Arizona. So most of my brokers, I'm dealing with texts and emails, and the loads that I get never hit the load board. So I'm able to do really, really well with those relationships. This third topic, building really good relationships with brokers, it's not a quick fix. It's going to be something that you're going to have to do over time. And I will make another video specifically targeting how to build good relationships with brokers, because I think a lot of drivers think that you have to be this dynamic dynamo of a salesperson to deal with brokers. And I really haven't found that to be true. It's a conversation. So anyway, stay tuned for that. So what if you're in a situation now where you really don't have any relationships with any brokers and you're really having a difficult time? What can you do? This is a sub point. Find a good dispatching service. I recently had to do that when I got a load from Phoenix. It was an 11-stop load from Phoenix. I delivered in Iowa and then ended up delivering in Wisconsin. It was 10 days, 11 stops, but I knew I was going to end up in Wisconsin. And at the same time, this was about a month ago, actually, things were drying up here. It wasn't working for me to go to Colorado anymore. And that's this market. It's up and down. This weekend can be great. It can be great for a couple weeks, and then all of a sudden, it's dead for a couple of weeks. Well, my business can't sustain 2 dead weeks. Honestly, some of you may be able to relate. So when I knew I was going to be delivering in Wisconsin, I contacted a company called Rig Runner Logistics. Steve runs the dispatching service. So I called Steve a week in advance. I said, hey, I'm going to be in Wisconsin. I'd like for you to dispatch me. The thing that's great about Steve is that Steve is a truck driver. So you want to find a dispatching service, if you can, with someone who is a truck driver or has a lot of experience as a truck driver. Steve has run, I believe, the lower 47 states, but he's based in Missouri, Midwest. He knows that whole area very well, and I don't. So I couldn't afford to spend or to waste 2 or 3 weeks trying to figure out that job market. So I used his service, and it was great. He kept me running, he kept me profitable. And sometimes if you find that you don't have any relationships with brokers, things are difficult, you may want to look into using a dispatch service. Point number 4, willingness to move to a more profitable market. 2021 went out with a bang. Rates were great all the way up until December. 2022, however, for me anyway, was a big dud. I had 2 breakdowns in December that put me into a financial crisis. In my intro video, that breakdown was the biggest one. That was a bad one. So that put me into a tailspin. I was expecting rates. I didn't think rates would come back up in January. Everyone that I had been talking to saying that, yeah, typically January can be slow. Things normally start to pick up around February, March. The great thing about what I experienced was that I was able to still maintain running to Denver and back during January, February. March, however, the rates dropped dramatically, almost in half of what I was making. So 900 miles from Phoenix to Denver didn't work anymore. My profit was going to fuel. So much so to the point that I was not able to achieve my daily rate. I have a minimum daily rate that I need to make every week to stay in business. And running to Colorado in March, the beginning of March, wasn't happening. So I had to change. I started looking at California. California, from Phoenix to California, not great rates. But I did have a couple of brokers where I could get better rates. Coming back from California back to Phoenix, the rates are pretty good. So I switched and I started running to California. Unfortunately, what happened at the same time, I was probably a couple of weeks late to the game on that one, not realizing that fuel was starting to creep up a lot. And I also found out on my first trip to California that the rates coming back to Arizona had also gone down. So I tried to make that work for 2 weeks. Both weeks, I was not profitable. I was not making $400 a day. So at the end of that, it was about the end of March, I contacted one of my mentors, told him what was going on. I was under a load from California back to Arizona. I gave him a call, and then I pulled over. We took a look at 123 load board. We were actually able to look and see that, yeah, freight volumes were in the tank and the rates were in the tank on the West Coast. The West Coast was dry, but we were able to see that the Southeast was still popping. So I had a decision to make. My business honestly wouldn't have lasted another 2 or 3 weeks running to California and back. Just wouldn't have sustained it. Now, did I want to go to the Southeast? Not really. I was enjoying being home every weekend, run to Colorado, come back, and I was doing okay. I didn't want to have to go and stay out away from home that long. But in order to stay in business, I had to do it. Some of you may be in that situation right now. You've got to be willing to go. So I talked to my wife and I let her know that I was going to have to go back east. And she supported me 100%, which was awesome. But that's what I ended up doing. I got a load from Phoenix to New Mexico, and then from New Mexico to Augusta, Georgia. What was great about that was that on my way to Augusta from New Mexico, I contacted a broker. And here's where having relationships with brokers, again, can help you out. I contacted him and told him, hey, I'm going to be touching down in Augusta, Georgia in a couple days. What do you have going on? We talked, and the great thing about that, I was out for 6 weeks, and he was able to keep me running for the majority of 6 weeks, and I was profitable. There were a couple of opportunities, I call them opportunities, because in trucking things don't always work out, right? A couple of opportunities where he didn't have anything for me, so I had to jump on the load boards, which was fine. And because I ended up contacting another company that I would do a lot of business with, I was based in Georgia. I pretty much stayed in Georgia and worked the states around Georgia. Great thing about that was that I don't think I ran a load longer than 470 miles. And the money was good. The money was good. So it worked. So having the relationships with brokers and being willing to move into a market that you may not be familiar with. You may not want to be gone for the amount of time that may be necessary to save your business, but you must have that flexibility and willingness to do it if you want to stay in business. That's what I did, and I'm sharing what I've done. Point 1 again, lower your costs at home. Point 2, lower your costs in the truck. Point 3, build good relationships with freight brokers. Point 4, be willing to move to a more profitable market. And point 5, pray, pray, and pray. That's right. My faith, firstly, got me into this business, and it has sustained me through the good and through the bad of this business, and it is sustaining me right now. So I know a lot of you do have a relationship with God, and you trust Him, and you rely on Him, as I do, to get me through the ups and the downs, the discouragements, the disappointments, and there are many in this industry. Also the protection. There are more variables out here than any of us can deal with. Okay, I mean, if we're honest with ourselves, anything can happen in a split second, and it can be deadly. Having that peace of mind, having things work out at a ship or a receiver when it normally wouldn't. Many of you probably have stories. I have a ton of them. But yeah, it's my faith that got me into this business and is sustaining me through this time right now. Now, you may be saying to yourself, well, I don't believe in God. And that's okay. What I would recommend you do is you got to have mentors. You got to have 1 or 2 people who know this industry, who have been through ups and downs in this industry that you can call and say, hey, I'm dealing with this right now. that you can get information from. Hey, feel free to leave a comment. I'll give you a call. I'll get in contact with you if you find that you're having problems, having difficulties, having challenges. Many of us, let me say, I do hear other YouTubers say, well, you got to prepare, and that is true. You need to prepare. But what if you prepared and you still find yourself in a really, really difficult situation right now? What are you going to do? Well, you need to talk to somebody who knows, who has been in tough situations, who's gotten through them. They may have suggestions that you may not necessarily feel comfortable doing. When I first got started, one of my mentors said, you have to be willing to sacrifice. And I thought I knew what that meant until I've had to leave my home and go into a different area twice this year already. And yeah, it wasn't exactly what I wanted to do, but you know what? It turned out to be the best thing for my business. And I was happy because of it. I got a lot of support at home. And again, the prayers. I was happy on the road. And happy to be doing what I'm doing. I love this industry. I love my business. And I'm hoping that some of the information that I pass on through this channel can help some of you get through some tough times so that we can get on to some happier times. And even through some of the tough times. We all have stories, right? We've all got stories that we can talk about, stories of triumph. There are stories of failure as well, and that's okay, because some people have failed in trucking. I'm one breakdown away from being out of business. I'll tell you honestly, but I don't worry about it because, hey, I'm doing the best I can do. Prayers are keeping me sane, keeping me positive, and keeping me moving forward. So those are 5 points that I'm doing to stay in business right now. If you can find any value in those points, I hope you can. Next time, I'm going to talk about my mentors and others who have been an inspiration to me on this trucking journey. But go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, give her a thumbs up or a thumbs down, however you want to do. And also remember to go ahead and hit the bell notification so that you can be notified when I drop more videos. I want to thank you guys again for checking out the channel. Have a good one.